I'm here. I'm thinking, what am I going to talk about tonight? It's Monday night, 8 p.m., and I want to welcome you to In the Pursuit of Joy. Still chasing after that dream. So, I was taking just kind of one of those lazy drives with a friend of mine this weekend, and we ended up at Target and something that she was looking for, and we just kept bouncing from store to store, and we went from searching for the things she needed to kind of eyeballing other stuff. She ended up buying nothing. Actually, I bought ice cream. It was a better idea than shopping for clothes, whatever she was looking for. But so at Target, Target's kind of avant-garde in the stuff they sell, because they're just not afraid to introduce brands and products that sometimes they kind of hearken to the olden days. If you know what the olden days, I'm talking about mainly the 1970s. But I won't say that, and it has to do with fashion that we figure like, hey, if you're of a certain age, you'll recognize some patterns as you're walking through the clothing store, whatever you are. And it brings back that old conditioning, like when I was a kid, those shoulder pads were in, and you see a sweater with ruffles. That kind of scared me a little bit. It had the ruffles over the sweater, and I'm like, that's one thing I never wore. But now, if you like it, that's cool. I'm not judging. But the one thing that caught my eye, and you can go to their website, because I just stopped and I nudged her, because I'm at least a good 15 some odd years older than she is. So we kind of trailing each other generationally. But what I spotted were a display with nothing but veritable facsimiles of 1970s tracksuits. And like I said, back in the day, those were pretty chic. Granted, some people went to the gym to be seen. I mean, we still do that today. But I just thought it was hilarious that, they're not even trying to hide what it is. So she said, well, it's called retro. Retro sounds better than maybe about 20 years ago. I was talking to someone who was very young then, who was supposedly worked kind of in theater. I won't go into detail, because that was one of those acting projects that did not turn out so well. Actually, for the person who started it, my acting part of it was fine. I was not compensated for that acting gig, but talking to one of the designers, that person who did the wardrobe, and I will bring things from home, like lace, and I used to sew. I would have stuff like that around, and I would tell her, I just bring you some, lace and some other fabrics and stuff that I have at home that I'm not using, and she would cringe, because she would figure that there was an age gap. So she thought that why would you? It scared her, like, oh, that's like too old fashioned. That's just not me. But you can use the elements from things from the past to add to the future and come up with something really special. So it's not a matter of just actually going full bore. You want to dress up as 1950s or 60s. I did have a phase like that where I had actually kind of indulged and enjoyed wearing period, clothing, and I've used vintage, made some of my own from original patterns, and some were actually purchased to some purveyors of retro clothing. If you want to say that way, professionals, people who actually know how to choose these clothes. They well curated wardrobes. I had many of these dresses and outfits in my closet for a few years until I gave that up. And just like any kind of collecting, it just kind of has a cycle, and then you see something else is shinier and you go after it. And going back to Target, and I'm standing there, and these tracksuits, you have to see them. You have to go on the website. You have to go on the website. And we had to laugh, and I was actually salivating over. Well, they had the 1970s colors. That's not just the stripes and all that, and the cut was the same. And in fashion is recyclable. So I've always known that. Having been pretty close to, designing some of my own outfits and actually being a seamstress for a while, and I just kind of dabble in that stuff for a long time. Until a few years ago, I had like thousands of dollars of worth of equipment and sewing machine. I give away patterns, really expensive stuff. I only kept a handful in case I get a hankering for sewing one of these days again. Then I'll do it again. And now I'm thinking more like maybe I just hire someone to sew for me, because that's kind of hard on the eyes and the hands. That manual dexterity. It just eats up your eyesight over a period of time, and it's delicate work, so it's kind of hard on the hands. And I really enjoyed looking at these clothes because they were so wonky. It did harken to I'm not gonna say a better time. I know I said last week, that quote that we're so afraid of happiness because what we lived. We're reminiscing about how good the good old days were, but we're not really essentially paying attention to today. And then we're nervous about tomorrow. We're not focused on living for the day. So the tracksuits are pretty cool. I may even indulge and get a set myself. And I'm only saying that because I've been thinking about lately about how we think that whatever situation we're in, it's unique to us. I'm not trying to not talk about the car problem I had last week because that's still ongoing. I gotta give some more time for this to stew in its own juices. I'll kick that up for next week. I won't go into the car thing, but what makes us think that when you're out of work, for example, if you're out of work suddenly and you're upset, and yes, it disrupts your whatever you think your sense of comfort is and safety and security, and then you have to start thinking and you have to retweak what's going on and try to get yourself back on track where you get that feeling again, where you feel safe and comfortable. And I've talked about not getting too comfortable in life previously, because that's the big trap. We find the things that we latch onto something and we like it and hug it and kiss it like a security blanket. Security blankets, they need to be washed. After a while, you wash them so many times, they fall apart, and then you have to throw them away. And then that's a big deal. Do we replace the security blanket with another one? And then restart that relationship all over again? It's not the same. So the thing about the tracksuits that I found so amusing is that I found myself thinking that what I'm going through today, somebody else has also gone through to some extent. Some people may have not. Some people may have always had some resources available to them where they didn't feel that they had lost anything or they couldn't recover. A lot of people, they go from like this rags to riches stories. You may find on the media sometimes that they went from nothing to having so much because their mindset was of abundance. They had pure confidence that they could turn things around. And conversely, other people find themselves just sinking lower and lower, just scratching, trying to scratch themselves out of a big hole. And it's in the things that they continue to do, being themselves. And that includes me. I've been myself many times. And sometimes when I veer from that, I find great successes in life. And the story about the tracksuits, it's that and the young lady that she was scared of using old materials to enter into new fashions for, I won't say it was a show, but it was a kind of like a movie. It was a film. It was a film project that I was working in, and I provided my own wardrobe. I played a doctor, so I had no issue. I had no need for wardrobe services. I had suits and I had a lab coat, so I brought my own. But it scares people that they introduce things that may disrupt whatever line of thinking they're in. I don't know how that is, how we cannot welcome something that's old but it's new to us, which is when you go into a thrift shop and it says new to you. Have you seen those signs? There's plenty of antiquing where I live. I used to be a very aggressive collector of mid-century modern furniture. I only have like 2 pieces left in storage right now, and it made me pretty happy just be able to travel in time, just to see wonderful at the height of architecture, the 20th century and design, and that's really what's attractive about the period. Not that I want that the good old days were the good old days. Cars were not as fast as they are today. They don't have the radar engines like we did today. They don't have the technology we have in cars today. But the cars from 50 years ago were beautiful. You have to admit they're pretty sexy compared to today's cars. Most cars pretty much borrow designs from each other, and so that kind of makes them kind of run of the mill. And to me, it's kind of hard to tell one car from another sometimes. So being afraid to try something from the past, like if you're digging up something from before, something that happened, and reliving it, not to torture yourself or badger yourself upside the head about some mistake you made, but rather you can dig from the past and learn from it and integrate it into the present. You can make comparisons, and we often do. We do this without being prompted. Things that go unresolved in our lives, we tend to go digging, for past memories. We do it all the time. Looking for closure. Does that sound familiar? And closure is really something that we don't need. Once it's lived and it's left behind, it shouldn't be relived, but you can recall it, and you can examine it, and even analyze it. How can I do better? How can I improve on this? And so we often get stuck in the thinking pattern of what I'm going through is so unique that nobody else would understand. If you're a parent, and I haven't been a parent, there's no chance of me doing that, being a parent, but I've been a child, somebody's child, and I know for a fact that I've talked to my parents, and sometimes in a tone when you hit that certain age, and you snap a little bit back at the old folks, and you tell them, you don't know what it's like being me. And the parent just laughs. They laugh in parents because it's like, no, I was a teenager once. You don't get to be here without going through that stage. We all have to go through, birth. Those of us who are born and get to live, we come from birth to, infancy or early childhood and so on, and go through the stages of growth. And we can't get to where we are right now without going through all that. And so at our stage, when we have, our brains are pretty much a little bit of mush, we don't really understand how this whole game works. So everything's recyclable. The fashion is recyclable. If you like my friend said, well, if you just call it retro, then it's chic. If you call it, well, that's 1970s, then kids start to add up the years. And I recently skipped my 40th. Yeah, it's the 40th year high school reunion. Good for them. I'm not going to get on a flight. I was busy, very busy. I made the 20th. And it's one of those things like, do I really want to be here? It was very nice party. I just don't see a point of going to these things. I'm not getting off track, but just to illustrate the point that it's been 40 years. It's been 40 years since, I was in high school and John Lennon was shot dead, and we had down the radio. I was in school when that happened. You start. I have no attachment to those memories. I already went through high school. I refuse to go back to high school, not even to reminisce about, skipping class and, just little things. They bring no quality to my life. That it was a stage and I had to overcome it. And it's kind of funny though, because the retro, how you label something makes it more palatable to a younger generation. And suddenly they're ready to embrace old stuff. So I'm not saying that old stuff doesn't have any value, but I still want one of those tracksuits, just to screw with people's minds. Probably one of those, it's a baby blue with white stripes. That one really annoys people. It might make some people smile, the old folks. So our attitudes are also, and actually, I won't put it that way. What I've figured out is that the universe has patterns. We're just kind of caught in the whole thing. Like I said before, when we make a decision, it's like changing lanes on a highway. You got to look around. What's around you? Do you see more traffic? Do you see more traffic volume on that lane? Unless you need to get over to an exit on ramp, you have to check to make sure you can get in. And when you get in, how long do you need to be in there? Not very long, right? So if we make one decision, and how long do you think you have to be? This is a financial matter. If you're not sure, how long can you be? You borrow money, how long can you be in that spot in your life? Can you save money? Can you just not go out to eat so much? Can you cut back a little bit if they have a goal? I'm using money because money is pretty universal. That's the energy we're all seeking all the time. It's what moves things in this physical plane. But mentally, how long can you tolerate being in that same lane before you make your move? You should be able to time the pattern. The pattern already exists. It's a channel. You get caught in it, or you enter it fully knowing that you could get stuck, or that you need to transition from that point very quickly into where you want to be. And I don't want to transition from a 1970s clothing because I wore them, but just to relive that. The car problem, money circumstances. You start going through the list of things that you wanna fix in life, and it's all recyclable. We are unique as individuals, but each one of us sees commonly found circumstances and situations that just exist in the universe, that just out there, and we are simply interacting with them. So if it's a new job, how long do you stay at the bottom before you start climbing up? Because it's only logical to want more. If you're not wanting more, then you're having a problem. You're having a self-image problem. Everyone should be able to aspire to something higher, always. And with that we should all be very aware of these patterns, universal patterns. So it got me to thinking. Like I said, just going to the store and looking how things, each generation comes in brand new, like the new employee at your job, and they have to be onboarded, and they have to go to training, and they do the PowerPoint slides, and then they throw you on the floor and to be on your own pretty much. I've had to do that myself recently. Changing industries, let's just say, changing career, not necessarily career, but just wanting to go into a different kind of work environment, just totally opposite of what I used to do. Doing that scary thing every day that I talk about. I have been in the process of doing just that. I have been enjoying it though. So I'm seeing patterns that we get so comfortable in one place because we think that comfort means safety, and that whatever we have right this minute won't go away. Well, it is going away. That opportunity you thought you might wait 6 months to go after, you got 2 other people that are pursuing it right now. They're preparing, they're following the rules, they take in extra work, they're seeking more training when it's offered. They're actually moving in the direction of that goal. So if you're waiting 6 months to execute a thought, the opportunity is gonna just rotate off, and somebody else will rotate with it. So it's kind of like an orbit. Life is kind of like an orbit, just like the planets. It keeps coming back. Like, have you ever noticed that? Now, when you go through periods of, now let's say some abundance, where you're getting your act straight, and money comes in, it's good, and like I said, you get a sense of comfort and security. You get a job. Your personal relationships seem to be on par. And then just one day, literally the next morning, you start a new day, and none of these things fit, and you're trying to figure out what happened. Where did the security go? And you're not noticing that they're going to go away anyway. Now, if you're in tune, like I talk about intuition, just knowing when to move and transition, and paying attention to cycles, things that happen around you, that will give you that extra edge in maneuvering yourself into that position where you need to be. And it's hard to sustain, just like sustaining a high dopamine levels, like being happy all the time. It's not impossible, but it's hard work, because you have to talk yourself, I guess if you've been with me for a while, just talking your brain into letting go of the old conditioning, and your self-image suffers because you have no idea who you are and who you're supposed to be at any given time, and you have to figure that out. And once you do, and you're strong inside that way, you can pursue anything you want, because you'll have the confidence. You have the confidence to, like I said, to use the same metaphor, you get in that lane, you know you're going to get caught in something. You know you're going to get caught in something. You can ride out the heavy traffic. You can use any of the metaphor, like you're going to ride out a storm. People do that all the time. They're not difficulties, they're just challenges. And they're there already. You just happen to be in the path. You got in this path. It belongs in that spot right there in the universe. How did you get there? And how do you get out? Or do you ride it out for a little while to see how you handle yourself? I've done that myself. I've been testing this theory, and the past couple of months, it has been pretty rocky. But I'm accepting the fact that it's helped me realign a lot of my thinking. If I can handle, just letting go and and trying something new and scary that prepares you for the next challenge. So when you do kind of make a miscalculation, and you will, because we all do, we overcorrect or don't calculate our distance properly. We're not navigating through life, and we end up someplace where we do not really want to go, but we may be stuck there for a little bit, and we have to be able to honestly and earnestly actually be able to not accept it as an absolute, because it doesn't last forever unless you want it to. You can get stuck in the same lane for a long time, or you can milk it for a little bit just to see if you can challenge yourself to get out, but to get out in a really magnificent and flawless way, or you can do it in a bumpy way, go out with a bang. And I don't have anything specific in mind that you could use to apply it tonight, but rather to just bring some awareness that whatever it is you're going through right this minute, and you're thinking, this only happens to me. I've actually caught myself saying this many times. I have a funny sense of sarcasm. I use it thoroughly, but I haven't been so sarcastic lately. I think I should talk about sarcasm sometime soon, but I have to confess that I've told myself I can sink way lower, but not in a bad way, meaning that I am open to riding out a storm even though I got me there. I don't know if that makes any sense, because here's another confession. It doesn't seem that thrilling anymore to just being able to just talk about things versus just going out and proving them. So when I counsel or mentor someone, I want to tell them that you may have gotten yourself in the spot right now. You're not enjoying it, but what can you learn from it? You don't like this job you're doing, but it brings, you're deriving, it's time, your time for money. It should be money working for you, but I guess I could bring that up in another podcast soon. It's time to talk about money again, but I know people who are acting like they're trapped, and in a profession they just totally hate, but they're learning. This first thing I asked them, because first of all, I'm not feeling the suffering, but I've been there. It's like I said, it's not unnatural. It is not so unique and unusual to have a low point. Even as vigilant as you may be, if you learn anything from me, take a couple of pointers, and you still fall. You still should be able to have a psychological and emotional hardiness developed, where you can find the good. You can find something good and find peace and that little bit of joy, even in your struggle. And the struggle being that, can I get out of this? Or how can I get out of this? And whatever it is you may be going through that challenges you today, you should be able to just ride it out. I know things are not so great, and people I know, they're not so great, but I'm learning something. People that I've known who have quit their jobs suddenly because they couldn't do what they were doing anymore, and they realized they wanted to grow, and they were not growing, and they were just, they were showing up and getting a paycheck, and they took a big risk, especially people who have families. They have, spouses and little kids. They have a mortgage, and sometimes you just have to make or break. You have to save yourself. Get out of that lane. Transition. Don't stay on, then miss your exit. Then you're still gonna have to you can still keep going. There'll be other exits, but will those exits get you to the place you want to be? And is that place gonna be better than the exit you missed? So correcting or overcorrecting or undercorrecting, you're going to do all of these things. We all do. And being able to accept and recognize that is one of the first steps in actually learning to handle life better and getting some joy out of it. That's the whole point. I know you may learn from other people that your purpose in life is to find out what your purpose is. That's the meaning of life. I don't think it has to do anything with meaning. Before I let you go, it's going to be a short show. I worked some long hours this week and I'm pretty exhausted. The one thing that I want to leave you with tonight is just make the move. Whatever it is that you think is holding you back, and you're dissatisfied. Like, I'm not going to go through all the 10 transformative lessons. You can go back on those. If you're just joining me tonight, I appreciate you being here. Just go back on the past few weeks worth of podcasts, and you know what I'm talking about. And hopefully I can get that book, the ebook, published and ready to go, and I'll be gifting some copies to some of my listeners. I'll figure out how I'm going to do that. And it has been a busy summer. Make yourself so hardy and so strong, and just build such a strong shield where you know something is happening right this minute that you're not really necessarily happy with or in agreement with, but it's happening. Somehow you did or said something, or didn't say or didn't do something, and it got you here, and you need to correct your course. You need to get back in the trajectory that you were following initially. And it takes work. It's not a matter of I'm having downtime now and I just can't, and you can't think, and it may be stressful or maybe distracting. And most importantly, you should always remember, give yourself a break. You are unique in how you handle the conditions that you live in. So you live in this universe and on the physical plane on this planet. And things will change. And they're totally out of your control. It's how you respond to these condition changes that will make the difference and improving and making your life more enjoyable and more successful. I mean, whatever it is that your idea of success is an accomplishment. That's each person has their own idea. I'm not here to tell you exactly how to live it and exactly how to feel happy and accomplished, but just to have some universal and basic steps that you have to take to make yourself really strong mentally to get you to that point. And that's all I got today. I know it's kind of, usually I go on and on and on. Next week I'll have something a whole lot better. I'm going to continue with this topic of correcting ourselves. There's some examples where how we make decisions. Like you move one thing. Let me use the saying when one door closes, another one opens. That concept. We do not live in a vacuum. So when you do something, there's going to be the universal laws of physics and all that. It falls into that. When we move into the direction of something, and we don't calculate it exactly, or pretty close to it, where do we land? We land someplace where we don't want to be. How far are we from that particular goal or location? How far are we? Do we have time and options? And then we can actually operate better. we can get back on track. If we don't have time and options, I heard this from pilots. Pilots usually, if they're asked if they're ever afraid something goes wrong, and they say if they have time, like I said, distance between point A to point B, time and options, different plans of action, different outcomes, then they can work. They can work. So think about being like a pilot. If you're so far removed from the surface of the earth, and you have the technology and you have the navigational skill, and you have to figure out when there's trouble, you're so far away from your element because you're not on firm ground anymore. So there are risks that you have to face, but the biggest risk is fear. Like the pilot said, if you don't have time and options, then they start to worry. That's when the fear factor kicks in, because fear is ignorance. It's just simply not knowing. And by having options and not having a firm plan, it's just they have training and education and practice, and they probably rehearse some of these scenarios in their heads. And we should be just as well rehearsed and as well versed in our mental state, and that when we get hit by that one event in life, we've been there before. It may have been to smaller scale or a larger scale. If you've even broke before, like it's a logical sequence. You lose your job, it could be the next thing could very well be you lose a spouse, somebody leaves you, or I know that sounds horrible, but it happens. You could lose your house. You may not make enough payments on that mortgage, and you're going to have to, you may end up having to downsize, sell the place, and end up from a house to an apartment to navigate through that challenge, because money's not coming in as well, so you have to fix the other parts. And one parting thought is you can't, and if you can correct me if you want to. I mean, I'm open to receiving feedback from you. If you correct something, you can correct one thing in your life, but like the old saying about the doors, if you tweak one part of something in you have to tweak the whole thing. You can't just work on, let's just say, your fitness, but then your money habits are still lacking. You're still, it's a sucking chest wound. Money gets sucked out. You have money problems. And then if you have a good attitude at work, maybe you can get that pay raise and that promotion. You want to improve yourself, but you're not doing it. And then all other people, then you complain that other people get ahead of you. I've played these scenarios in my head many times. I have acted in some of these many times. I can prove to you that you can change one thing about you, and if you don't work on changing the rest of everything, like your relationships, your interactions, work, everything across the board that's important, that it's involved in your life, it's not going to work. Because you can have money and still be miserable in relationships. So you have to work at everything. That's the whole point. So this is in a nutshell how retro thinking can help you. I know it's back to the tracksuit. Retro thinking really is draw from the past, because this scenario, whatever you're living right this very minute, you've lived it before. It's just simply out there. You just simply cut yourself in that spot and time and place in the universe where you're living it again. So just like the tracksuit, it's recycled. Ideas and designs are recycled. You just slap a new name on it, and it becomes new to you. Just like the thrift shop down the street, new to you. So I want to leave you for that. I know it's kind of a little scattered tonight, so I'm a little tired. But don't forget to give yourself a break. ultimately you should be able to, like I said, one more time, become hardy, improve, become hardy, and notice the changes around you. And why are you in the spot that you're in right now? And then just simply start transitioning out of it. Find a way. It's already there. Just like the tracksuit. It's going to come back at you every 40 years. You just have to be able to figure out a way to navigate around them, or write it out and say, hey, of course, don't write out something that you can avoid. If you've been there before, there's no need to relive, being in a state of poverty for 6 months. You shouldn't have to go back to that. Like, you've already lived it. I mean, no one should be able to experience that. You've been without a car. Oh, that kind of cuts me to the quick. With me being without a car for a few days. Yeah, that's true. I've been on foot before. I used to take buses, and I used to go to walk a lot of places. That was my reality a long time ago. And then recently that kind of became the same thing again, which is kind of funny. I just dropped my phone. So maybe I'm leaving you a little bit confused, but just think about it. What you've been through before, you may even straddle that pothole on the roadway. Just straddle it. If you don't have to relive something, don't. If you need to learn it again, if you want to remind yourself, keep you grounded or something. But me, I would much rather not learn that way. I will be just as happy to transition out of that lane, out of that cycle, and then get back onto something that's so much more enjoyable. So it's time for me to go. This is In the Pursuit of Joy podcast. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for stopping by and listening to me rant tonight. It's a little scattered, but I'm going to make some sense here another week or so. I hope. I hope you have a great week. I know mine has already started off to a good start. I got to talk to you for a few minutes, and it turns out I actually used up all my time. See, I got myself through that. I did not think that I would tonight, so I got that second win. I look forward to chatting at you next week.